Hello, everyone from across the globe. Thank you for joining us at Loudon Agile Network for our March event. Today, we have not one, but two um, extremely knowledgeable and expert speakers who are joining us for our conversations. So please help me, let me introduce you to our two speakers, Dr. Suzette Johnson and Dr. Robin Yeman. They're both technical fellows and authors of Industrial DevOps. They have spent decades implementing complex systems across, I don't know what, 150 or so defense and aerospace programs. And these are programs where security, reliability, and safety, these are not options. These are extremely important aspects of these programs. To be able to find success and deliver success to these programs is a work of a lot of planning and a lot of knowledge as well. So if you are working in engineering, product, cybersecurity, data, or enterprise transformation, this is the session where you're going to learn the practical side of making any transformation work. And in our case, we're going to be talking today about AI transformation inside real organizations. So the topic for today is enabling AI adoption and using the people, process, technology approach, which some of us call the PPT approach. So without further ado, let me pass on the microphone to our speakers, Suzette and Robin. Thank you so much for joining us.
Okay, great. And thank you for that introduction. We really appreciate it. So I'm Dr. Suzette Johnson. I'm on the left there. I work for Northrop Grumman as a fellow, as you know, you heard in the introduction, and here with Robbins, and we have, teamed up for probably over 10 years on this whole journey on improving the state of the practice of building large scale cyber physical systems, leveraging lean, agile, digital, and now looking at the adoption of AI as part of this journey. And just excited to be here. And thank you for taking the time to be here. And Robin, did you want to say anything?
Sure. My name's Robin Yeman. Nice to meet you. I am a Leidos Fellow, and really excited to be able to join you all today. I really am heavily focused on how we can optimize systems, and it still seems just like it has in the past that we're still a bit siloed. We still aren't using all of the tools in our toolbox to actually deliver.
Yeah, and as you know, in the introduction, you heard that we have worked with a lot of programs and a lot of project teams over the years in transformation, and now just starting to bring in AI over the past couple of years as part of this journey. And today, what we are focused on is sharing about how we're exploring how organizations build AI capability, how it aligns with industrial DevOps. And if you're not familiar with that term, just think about the application of lean, agile, and digital to building software, hardware systems. And the socio-technical transformation, and that ties back to the people, process, and technologies that is part of the major theme of what we're talking about today. So in terms of AI adoption, and some of this, will look very similar to other transformations that you may have experienced in your journey, is that you get, there's this promising model, or you get all this excitement around, the prospects of AI, of what we might be able to do with it. We start seeing the roadmap presented by our enterprise services or IT organizations, or and there's just a lot of enthusiasm about the hope and of how it's going to transform things. And then there's always this a little bit of a law, right, where some of that excitement wanes. We don't see quite the progress that we were expecting, or maybe we're not seeing quite the results we were expecting, or maybe we're struggling to figure out how to measure those results and make it quantifiable to, validate or get buy-in to the future investments that we want. And, the tagline there is AI initiatives rarely fail because the technology fails. It's more about the organization and are we properly positioning our organization and our people around the adoption of these new capabilities and these new ways of working. So you can see here on the right? You have probably, I'm assuming many of us have been on an agile transformation, and then it went into like the DevOps or maybe digital engineering and now AI. And I think all of these transformations, they follow a very similar J curve, regardless of the transformation. And that is, as we start to embrace these new technologies and we start thinking about all that it can be, there is a learning curve. How do we bring people's skills up to speed? How do we get it integrated into our ways of working? How do we build the governance models and the systems integration challenges around it? We've got legacy systems, we've got different cultures. And how do we then kind of bring the organization along? How do we bring our people along this journey? You always have your early innovators, people that are going to grab it quickly, but to really get the return on investment that we want, right, we need to carry it beyond the early innovators or the innovators and early adopters and into more of the streamlined organization. So we want to think about how is it going to impact our work, looking at our workflows. And there's a couple of different ways, right? AI, always, when I talk with different groups, I say there's different ways to think of AI. There's AI in my everyday kind of use, meaning I'm writing an email, make my email sound more professional, check it for grammar, or make it, sound more executive speak because I'm, or maybe I'm having it help with my PowerPoint slides or, where it's kind of like personalized to me and in my work. But then there's also how we integrate AI into the enablers that we use to build our systems. And that could be how I'm using AI to support coding or how I'm using AI into writing requirements or refining a backlog. And then for us, there's also AI as part of the cyber physical systems that we would be building. And how might we use AI as part of maybe automation of our systems? So we want to think about these different ways of working. How is it shifting in our workflows? Where do we need human insights, more of it, less of it, the governance around it? And where does accountability sit? So we have the ideas of the human in the loop, human on the loop, and how do we control that? And who owns some of the decision authority, even within the organization, of having a governance team, and then maybe another team who's owning the roadmap, and governance might be part of that roadmap. So again, taking in account the people, the processes, and the technology of how they come together in this socio-technical model, right? The skills development. So one thing, there's many opportunities in an organization for skills development. There might be some people taking specific 2 or 3 day training. They might be, so Robin and I did that with one group. We took like a 3-day training. That was a lot of fun where we were really getting to our hands on some LLM and some agents. And then there's also education, looking at things. I've explored like MIT. That was a lot of fun in their digital AI certificate program. But all of that is just like learning. And then we provide those opportunities to our organization. Then the other thing that I have started within my organization is really working with my middle tier managers and starting a community of practice. And that community of practice not just looks at how do we manage our projects and from a project management focus, but how are they as managers also leveraging AI as part of their work? And we actually explore and share ideas on different prompts that we use. How did we use AI for identifying risk? How did we use AI to help us shape our backlogs? How did I use our LLM to help us understand our burn down charts and forecasting. So a lot of that is sharing ideas and helping people to think in different ways. Then there's, of course, how do I use, AI as part of my engineering process? Which then takes us into thinking about our workflows. How does it get integrated into our tools? Who makes those decision authorities as part of that? Of course, we learn never blindly follow AI, right? Because sometimes it's accurate and sometimes it makes mistakes, it hallucinates, like someone was mentioning earlier. So we need to continuously kind of validate that. And then, of course, there's the AI, the models, the modeling, the AI agents. How do we integrate them as part of our platforms? And what does that look like, even helping us to be able to use agents between tools to get the information and the data that we need in a visible format? And then here looking at 5 roles, and I've kind of talked to some of these already in terms of when you're getting started, and I'm sure everyone's here is probably already doing this. You probably wouldn't be part of this meetup, but using just AI as a tool, right? That's how we get started, and it's a really nice way to get information. I might be using it to say, help me understand this requirement, or, help me understand if I have, an epic, and help me break my epic down into stories, and, just kind of pulling on it as needed to develop some insights. There's also which kind of leads then into AI as an assistant. So I use AI a lot for data analysis and having it provide insights and correlations, and having it find kind of trends that I might not see using large amounts of data. There's also human as an agent, human in the loop, where we are maybe using AI, but we are still in the control of that. We can think about how we are leveraging AI as part of autonomous vehicles, and maybe as the car is driving, but we are still able to make that final decision or stop the vehicle if we need to. And then one of the things I think is most intriguing right now is AI as that collaborator, AI as the co-creator, like using it to, you might have seen like vibe coding, working together to create a product, or working together as we're creating graphics, or co-creating my PowerPoint slides if you're using Gamma AI. All of those things we're actually able now, and I like, at least for me, I'm like using these things every day to help me kind of create my products or create the visuals, or some of the kind of artifacts, or I don't do a lot of development, but actually I've done development now. I hadn't done development for like 25 years. Never really good at it. I'm still not saying I'm great at it, but like I never thought I would ever code again. But now it's actually fun, right? And one Saturday I'm doing one of my MIT classes, and I was using AI to help me create an agent, and I actually had it so that it would speak, and I had it so it was using this Australian voice, and it was a lot of fun because I was like, help me, do a peer review of my code, help me find where I can make it better. But it was kind of funny because my family could hear this voice and me having this conversation, and they thought I was actually like on the phone with someone. And I'm like, no, it's just AI helping me through a process to create this agent that there's no way I would have been able to create it on my own. So I think it's giving us these new opportunities that I'm really excited about, because it's having us do things that, like, even, AI as an assistant, like how I'm using it to do data analytics that would have taken me like just so many hours to figure out all the correlations and all the formulas, and it just speeds up all that development and how we work and improves the speed of our working. So I'm actually going to turn it over to Robin. I don't know if you want to say any more about these things, because I know you've been digging into all this as well. And then just let me know when you want me to turn this slide.
All right. So great job. Yeah, no, again, it's definitely an interesting time to be alive. It almost seems like the technology change is similar to like the 90s when the internet was just coming out. Like it was just nuts. So it changes by the day, and we're really doing quite a bit with it. So next slide. So one of the things you might want to consider is, where's your organization today? What level of adoption do you have, right? Is your human in the loop? Are we moving to human on the loop? You know, do we leverage it for decision making? Does it act independently? I would say it's one of those things where the technology is way ahead of the policy and the law, and you know, obviously the standards. We're still pretty early days, but it does seem to be leaping forward, and we don't really understand the answers. Like if I use it to help me build something, is it now part owner? Does it have IP? Do I have IP? You know, it was interesting. I listened to one of my developers say, you know, they were leveraging I think they were just leveraging Claude, but anyway, they had asked, you know, a few different questions, a few different times, and finally the AI said, "You should go to school for computer science. I am doing all of your work." All right, so I was like, "Whoa, that's a bit crazy." So there's definitely, you know, some different things that we have there. I do think that you will find, no matter where your department is, no matter where you are on this scale, that you'll make decisions based upon the immediate need, right? So you will, you know, if we have an emergency, if we can't get, you know, let's say access to doctors in a timely manner, if we can't, right? In all of those cases, you'll find that we move to human on the loop much faster. So I think, you know, you've got different levels of where it's being used and how it's being used in different organizations, but I do find that when there seems to be like, hey, you know what, we don't have anybody that can actually, you know, do X, then everybody's kind of running to it. So next slide. So I really do believe that all of these come together. I'm a big fan of all of the tools in your toolbox. So basically, you know, really looking at AI in itself, the reason it seems to learn so fast is because of how rapid its loop is. It's almost like Agile in itself. You know, I find it interesting that, you know, at first, you know, it's winning games like it doesn't know what the game Go is, and then it's winning games like Go, right? Because it's rapidly going through an iteration and learning what's not the answer. Now, that being said, you know, it's a vector database. It's not really a search engine or anything like that. So it's really just looking at things like nearest neighbor. So why are these reinforcing? Well, Agile improves the learning cycle for me, right? Much shorter, faster batches. And DevOps makes it so that I can integrate across the pipeline. Well, AI kind of does both, right? It accelerates my learning as well as creating that insight across. It's, you know, I was asking it questions the other day, asking Gemini a question on, you know, which edge devices are the best? Which ones are the most secure? Why do I need, you know, this container versus that container? It gives me details where in the past I'd have to do a lot of reading. I'd have to ask, right? I am a software developer by trade, but I haven't coded in a long time. And so there's some things that I don't, you know, at a high level I could explain, but when you get down in the details, right? So it accelerates my learning because I can quickly go, oh, and then go do some research in there. All right, next slide. So some of the practices that I've seen really work and, how it truly works with AI, small batch sizes, right? So basically when we're working with using AI as a collaborator, just, as Suzette mentioned, I can basically ask Claude to create a plan, right? So create a plan for how you're going to build the system, or create a plan for how you're going to lay this out. Create a plan for how you're going to solve my project. Well, the cool thing about it is you can let it lay out a bunch of steps. And I'm like, okay, implement the first one, and I can see what the results are. Implement the second one. Oh, and I can see what the results are. Implement the third. Oh, back up. The third thing didn't work. That's no good. So it does allow me to work in, pretty small batches, and it'll even allows you to kind of build out that plan. So instead of saying, hey, build me a document, build me a solution, build me a system, you can actually have it build you the outline for a plan. What are the steps you would take to problem solve? Which is pretty cool. AI Agile. I like it. Um, you know, it definitely helps with things like, if we have a modular architecture and continuous learning. Um, Places where AI impacts rapid experimentation. I've been trying a variety. I don't know how many of you have had this, but we have, believe it or not, some legacy systems. We got legacy systems and things like COBOL and Ada and old languages and things like that. So running an experiment to say, hey, could you transition, let's say, this code in C to a memory safe language like Rust? And oh, by the way, will you give me all of the um, documentation associated with it? Or simply asking it, can you tell me what this capability is doing? IBM has a capability out there called Bob. And, one of the examples they showed just recently is they went out to GitHub, right, on the fly, because somebody asked them, and they pulled down a library and from GitHub and put it through Bob, and in 5 seconds, it explained the entire workflow. It put a UML diagram in there, and it laid in kind of what the different, if this, that. So it basically in English explained the whole thing. Like fantastic. Especially, I mean, especially in the government space, that's where I'm most familiar, not so much in the commercial space, but how many times do we take over or obtain a system that we didn't actually originally build? How many of these systems are decades old and they're wrapped in code after code that we don't actually know all the pieces? Really using AI to kind of unwind or, unknot that necklace, really, really good. I've also found that it does a fantastic job. So let's say I take it out of code. I'm not using it for code. Let's say I'm using it for, I'm an Agilist, right? So I build my epics and my features and my stories. Quite honestly, it does a fantastic job of building epics. And then I can say, okay, what's my acceptance criteria? And I can also go ahead and say, what should I have asked? What didn't I even think about that's not here? And then how should I bound this? What could be the MVP, the minimum viable product of this? As long as I can remember, right? So we've been working Agile for a couple decades now. Really transitioning folks who are leveraging waterfall into an Agile world. I've had to spend a lot of time learning how to decompose a whole variety of systems. And it takes some time, it takes some understanding, and then showing them how to take requirements and create an epic, or how to create, features. But now I can make short work of it. I'm like, okay, tell me what your system is. Okay, it's one of these. And, I can quickly just say, hey, there's a radar and blah, blah, blah. How would I decompose a radar? Because one of the things that my Agile teams have the hardest time with is those vertical slices, right? Those building those vertical chunks. Um, Decision support, right? Decision support is an excellent thing for AI to help us with. It's fantastic at patterns and helping. Now, let's just take it out of the work world. Last year, I happened to be in Germany, and I was taking the train because I got done and I had to get the plane in Berlin. But the train I was on would not go all the way to Berlin. And one of the things I wanted to do, because, I'm trying to save money, is I want to get off at the last train stop I need to have the shortest possible Uber ride to the plane or the airport. And so I was asking some people on the train, right? Not in very, because I can't speak German, so I'm, being slow trying to ask them. And one gentleman says, "You have ChatGPT, don't you?" It never even occurred to me. Like I never thought of that use case. And so, I tried it out and it told me the exact, like I said, I'm currently at this station, I'm going to the airport, blah, blah, blah. It told me the exact one that I needed to get off and how many miles it was going to be for the Uber to take and the range of how much that would probably cost me. And I was like, that's pretty cool. All right, so that's nothing to do with work. So quite a bit of really cool stuff there that you can do. So in work, in school, and again, trying to help us. I even actually just saw a team yesterday feed in a bunch of their epics, and if you are a scaled agilist, right? If you've used scaled agile framework it basically laid out their weighted shortest job first for them, which again, teams sometimes struggle with. So that was a quick turn. All right. All right. So Suzette and I, we worked on a book just a couple of years ago. It came out in 2023. And both of us really have a lot of passion for not just getting the software done or just getting the documentation done, but how in the world do I get systems out the door? Systems that have so many dependencies, they have multiple teams, they've got an integration of hardware, firmware, right? All the things. How do you do that? Um, and so some things that can help, right? Organizing around the flow of value. One of the things I'll tell you is, not only do people not talk, right? These different types of people, our tools don't talk, right? Neither one of them. So, for example, if I'm a program manager, right, I'm speaking in terms of things like, PMI, and I'm speaking in terms of, EVM, and I have my own acronyms and things like that. If I am a systems engineer, you can hear me say things that are around design thinking and systems thinking and maybe set-based design. If I am a hardware engineer, you're probably going to hear me use terms like rapid prototyping. If I am software, probably hear me say things like agile and software pretty regularly. That's pretty normal. And, if I get out into test, you're going to hear things like shift left. Once I get to operations, maybe you talk ITIL, so IT Infrastructure Library. Here's the interesting thing. None of those people speak the same language. However, they're all trying to optimize delivery across the system. Now, in the past, we had the struggle of understanding each other's language. But now, if we organize around the flow of value, we also have our friend, the AI, as the assistant tool that can help us map the language, right? That can help us, right, build a Rosetta Stone so we can talk to each other. This may be the first time when we could actually really, no kidding, have cross-functional teams that understand each other. So, in my opinion. All right. Next thing, architecting for speed and change. We know things are going to change, so we need a modular architecture with standardized interfaces. And the faster things are going, the more we need that. It allows us to do things like product line engineering better because we can create common platforms. It allows us to adapt the hardware, even though it's already been built, right? It's already been forged. So I usually say try to be software defined, hardware enabled, right? And that's where the maximum flexibility is. Next one's fast feedback. The faster the feedback, the faster I learn, right? So when you're getting that delay, you're getting a lot of potential rework. Now, last year I had the opportunity to actually map out, right? So I modeled a mid-size LEO satellite, right? And I built it, I used a life cycle modeling language to build the satellite using NASA's defined approach. It's very, you can go out, anybody can read it. It's very thorough. And I built that end to end. And then I built the same mid-size LEO satellite using an agile approach. And my lifecycle modeling tool showed that my agile satellite built in less than half a time for the third of the cost, right? So like it's the first time I've ever actually been able to say, but how do you know? Because anybody that, has been providing agile advice over the years knows that no matter what you say, people are going to go, but how do you know it wasn't the team? Or how do you know it wasn't this particular example? Or how do you know it wasn't this thing? Because we never build the system twice. I got to build the system twice. And then obviously things like continuous learning help AI thrive. But we do have to be careful, right? So one of the concerns is that we're going to lose our skills, that we will lose our knowledge. And I don't disagree because, for example, how many phone numbers do you remember? I used to know them. Now I don't know what the phone numbers. So again, we could atrophy there. I've read this great book that Matt Bean put out called The Skill Code, and he actually put together. He did some research in hospitals with surgeons who were leveraging automation, and kind of looked at the ones who had atrophied versus the ones that kept their skills. And so he's got some best practices there. And I know that he's currently in progress of his next book where he's researching a bunch of software engineers at different companies to monitor the same thing. What is AI doing to their skill level? So continuous learning on both sides, but then a mechanism that we need to do is make sure we can keep our skills. So I highly recommend that book because it's got some good, good lessons learned in there. All right, next slide. So industrial DevOps, plan, build, test, deploy, operate, improve, right? And we definitely want to look at this through. Planning with a simulation, what a great idea. Wouldn't we like to preview what we're going to do? Or let's do a pre-mortem. What went wrong? That's cool. Maybe I can even do the simulation with multiple options, which allows me to try set-based design before I do any hardware type stuff. Next, I want to build, right? So I'm going to leverage that. And in building, things that AI could support is helping us model. Like I asked it to build me a SysML v2, to move a SysML v1 model to a SysML v2 model. And Claude spit it out in like seconds. So that was easy. Building automated test, right? So what is one thing that we know our teams don't love to do? Build automated test. What is one thing that is AI very good at, as long as you're watching, right? Is building that automated test so that we can test continuously and throughout. So basically, we can use AI to build software to improve AI, right? It's a loop, a cyclical loop that we can just keep going in. And then, regular deploy and learn, right? So in my environment, we can do things like any kind of observability that we want to do, and ensure that we are building that observability into the deployed system so that I can automatically feed that back in through my simulation. Not quite a digital twin, but it sounds an awful lot like we're moving towards that for other things, maybe even beyond, cyber physical. All right, next slide. All right. Most organizations are stuck in experiment mode. Oh my goodness, this is so true, right? We have pilots out, just so many pilots. Um, and what happens is we are not collecting empirical data well with those pilots. We're not filling that back in, and we're not actually incorporating it into our real system development, right? We're putting it off to the side because we're a little bit nervous. So we really need to bring that in to our workflow. And I almost feel like, and you guys can tell me what you think, but I almost feel like we're trying to bring AI into how we work instead of bringing AI the problem and learning how it could work, right? I think we've got a way that we've always, done it. And so it may even potentially find a different approach, right? So I think we have to really work at that. We definitely need governance and accountability. Here's the problem. The technology has gone faster than the policy. I mean, it's kind of just like space. Um, Launching and all the satellites that Elon has out there, went way faster than being able to determine, okay, so what are the rules for other people launching in space? What are those things? Because it used to just be a small set. So it just moved way faster. And we're AI is actually going even faster. So I think, yes, we will feel some pain because uh, just because you can doesn't mean you should. Um, we should make sure that we've got an integrated learning system. How are we bringing that back in? How are we making sure that we're leveraging AI, but make sure that we're giving it that feedback and that we can scale it across the organization? Now, here's what I've found. I know that at Leidos, we're leveraging AI, across Leidos, but even there, I still find pockets. There's people that use it every day, all day long, and there's people that are like, I'm not quite sure, right? I don't want to touch it. Um, or I'll use it once, I'm told, or once in a while, or I'm not really sure what I'm allowed to do, right? Because um, the rules of what you're allowed to do aren't quite clear. So people get nervous there. All right. All right, we got a bunch of roles here and some examples. So case studies. AI's tool. We've got Netflix. It chooses movies. It does that all the time. Actually, I'm in Huntsville this week. I'm supporting training a group, and I got onto Delta flight, and somehow it not only knows me, but it makes recommended movies on the plane that thinks I would like. I'm like, okay, that's scary, but I'm gonna watch it.
Yeah, so Robin, you just made me think of something that was really funny last night. So I'm on travel for work,
Hmm.
and we were working till 9 o'clock at night, and we didn't have dinner or anything, but literally like somewhere around 7 or 8 o'clock at night, and I don't know if it was a coincidence, but we don't think so. I automatically get this pop-up from Uber Eats that says, "Do you want to order dinner?" Something like that.
That's
And
hilarious.
I know, and we're thinking, because I was like showing it to my group, I'm like, is this a coincidence? Or because I use my GPS every day when I go to work, it knows that I was still at work and it knows I haven't left. And so it's suggesting that I order dinner. And
Might be hungry.
yeah, I don't think it was a coincidence. I think there is something going on. And something else I saw that I thought was fascinating this week. Um, is there's construction work around the building that I'm working at. And because of that, when the GPS first tried to take me into the mapped entrance, but the mapped entrance is closed for construction. So I actually have to go down a different street and come in the back way. But every day, the first couple of days, it kept trying to take me into the closed entrance. Yesterday, it took me to the correct entrance. And I didn't tell it, I didn't do anything different. And I was like, somehow it learned that I'm not going to go to the the closed entrance anymore. It needs to route me to the back entrance. I'm just finding it fascinating. I'm like, there has to be some AI technology built in that was learning how I was going and changing, excuse me, my route. It was fascinating
That
what
is
it's doing.
awesome. Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, it's kind of, yes, and it's learning your pattern, it's embedding in your world. Yeah. As an assistant, I am really loving it. Look, Gmail, suggest responses, user approves. Those of us who have hot tempers like me need all the help they can get, right? You just maybe suggest the right way to respond to this. Um, Microsoft Word often makes a whole bunch of recommendations for me. And then, yeah, we've got ways that reroutes us dynamically. And, we're trying to look at that, in the greater, how can we bring that to, some of our different vehicles and things like that. Awesome. All right. Alexa automates home actions. Alexa just scares me because she just randomly talks, and I'm like, oh. So, what do I don't know. Um, yes, I've got the Roomba, and it's definitely going out of its way. And so these are just examples. There's so many places where it's coming into our life. Now, that being said, we have to be careful because, just as Suzette said, it it's it hallucinates. It can kind of point you in the wrong direction. I've even heard stories where people are working with it from software and they say, "Hey, I want to make sure that this passed all my tests," and you're thinking that it's making sure that the code passed all its tests, but really it's shut off your test engine. It just set it all to true, right? Well, okay, it's a way. It's not what you intended, but it is what got there. All right. So, what are some leadership things? What do we have to do? Well, one of the things I think we have to do is we really have to make sure that we're very clear in the way we talk, in what we ask. We probably always needed to be with people, but now especially with AI. We're going to need to look at things like redesigning our workflow, and identify which places does the human do the best and which places does the AI do the best, right? We're human machine teaming. And we should have some sandboxes, places, like I said, there's a lot of fear around AI. People are like, oh, it's going to eat my information or it's going to do this. What is a place where they can try it? Yes, AI does need a specific job role. Um, Building the workforce capability. That's one of the things that I am actually working on at Leidos now is, by providing AI out to our different teams, how do I make sure they have the education, knowledge, how to use it? Actually really seeing some very good results on things like pairing, right? So pairing people that are experts in domains, that because we have so many of these large scale systems that are, where we've had a lot of people retire, we got a lot of new entrants in, and these very dense domains like space or aircraft or whatever. And so we've seen some pretty promising results with what we call AI first or AI enabled engineers. So pretty junior engineers who have actually they know nothing about the domain, but they've gotten smart on AI, paired with people with serious domain expertise and really being able to get a lot accomplished in refactoring those legacy systems. And my husband's convinced that we should actually build AI agents that are personas with these SMEs expertise so that we have knowledge management. So as we do have a workforce that's retiring, we can actually like pass that information on to others because we do have a lot of dense domains. We're going to need governance. We clearly need that. And then, yep, you can go next. All right. So we want organizations to kind of progress through this fast. Experimentation and demos. But we need to kind of quickly move that into how does it integrate into our workflow? How do I actually build and deliver, better results using this in my workflow? Even looking at metrics that will enable us to determine ROI, because remember, a lot of these LLMs, models are tokenized, right? So I'm spending money for tokens to do things. And so there's even companies like DX who has metrics on how to measure return on investment for, hey, it costs my team this much in tokens, right? So dollars, and we've delivered this much so that they can actually get an ROI on costs. Because now I've got human machine teaming, but the machine's not free, right? So what's the real ROI? And then really getting it to that organizational level, right? We need to get it across the organization. My fear is that internally, right, we will go too slow trying to take in and adopt this capability, like we on, let's say, the builder side, or we on the, let's say, uh, regular person side. But on the other side of security, with the hackers, with people that are trying to do harm to our systems, or I feel like they will go faster because they're less worried about the risk of something going wrong, but they're also getting that faster feedback loop. So we're kind of in a race. We have this capability, but we certainly don't want it to get where our people can do more harm with it than we can do good with it. Any thoughts, Suzette?
A lot of thoughts as we've been talking through this, and just, kind of pulls us back to the beginning here, of where we were talking in terms of the people, the process, and the technology. And it's the integration, I think, of those that's really going to give us that. We talk in terms of competitive advantage. I think at some point, some of this becomes table stakes, just like Agile used to be a competitive advantage, but now it's just how everybody does work. And I think we're going to kind of see that trend over time. But right now, it reminds me of one of my first sessions at MIT was when the instructor, first met with us in one of the classes. He said, AI might not replace you, but those that know how to use it will. And I think that is also applicable to organizations, right? The more we learn how to leverage these technologies into our ways of working, just, again, there's different levels of adoption that we'll see, and then how we're using it either at the individual level, or the enablers to build the system, or actually it is the system. And just for the sake of time, I want to share, we have an article on leading the human AI revolution. It's 62 pages, so lots of reading opportunity there, that goes into more details. And we also have a paper also through IT Revolution that talks about AI as a team member, which was another interesting one. But we have some time for questions if there are any questions out there. And I have not checked the chat, so I don't know.
There's one question. Well, actually, there are two questions. The first one is, as organizations start embedding AI into code workflows, what governance models are you seeing emerge to ensure responsible use, especially around data security or human oversight? So this is from Pete Turlow.
So I think Well, one of the things I've seen is we have a set of guiding principles, a governance, right, that we apply to. So hopefully, all of your different organizations have an AI governance. But then um, as far as in building, it's kind of everything is code. So just because we can make sure that, we're secure, we should also make sure our governance policies are codified in code too, so that we can allow our teams to maybe run fast with scissors safely.
Yes, and when I'm working internally with some of my teams, we have documented kind of governance. So I'm always reflecting back to on the governance kind of rules in the organization so that they are very familiar with what we can and can't do, and how to put in some safeguards, because I think that's real important to revisit it. So that, and again, we also, just in terms of governance, like we have yearly training that we have to take that reminds us of all these safeguards. And I think that's real valuable. I even go back to it just because things keep changing so much. So I actually go back to our internal policy and think, well, has any of that changed? Is it still the same? Anything new that I need to know? Um, So I'm looking at the one question. I'm trying to understand the question about organizational transformation standpoint. How do you decide when classic change management is enough?
Well, I
So
think cognitive load is a thing right now. And last year I had the opportunity to talk to Anthropic, and they said, in a discussion that they felt that the limit, the slowdown is going to be in the human, right? Like we're getting change thrown at us so fast that they don't believe that the slowdown is going to be in the tools and the technology, but definitely the human. Is classic change management enough? I don't know that answer, but I do know that we are having to absorb it faster than we ever have.
So Robin and Suzette, my dean has raised his hand. Maybe he wants to clarify the question. Please go ahead, my dean.
Oh, thank you. My question is around just to give the context. In a recent article that I published, I argue that it has to be compared to transformation frameworks like ADKAR. What AA is going to need is something that's iterative and behavior centered. It's in light of that that I would like to, from your experience, I would like to know your thoughts on whether something like ADKAR is going to be enough, or we need a different view for AI related transformation.
maybe we just get through ADKAR faster. I'm not sure, right? So for other people's awareness, ADKAR is building awareness, desire, knowledge, ability, and reinforcement. And maybe AI actually can help us get through that learning loop faster, that adoption faster.
Okay.
Yeah, and have you looked? Because I think I have not taken the class, but I know that ProShi also has an AI change management class, but I haven't looked into whether or not it would answer your question. But I thought that was
Is it,
interesting that they're
would it be
offering that.
okay if I try to respond to that as well?
Yeah, absolutely.
So yes, ARTCAR is one of the most popular, but then there are multiple other change management frameworks out there, and they're very similar, right? I mean, if you look at SCARF or if you look at the Satire change management framework, all of them are like, okay, things are going normal, and then you introduced a change. Because of the change, it caused a chaos, and during that chaos, your productivity drops. There is a pushback from the people, and then you have to make some change management interventions. And after those change management interventions are made, it goes back up, but then it goes back to not what it was before the change was introduced, but actually it goes up beyond. So you have higher productivity, higher
Right.
throughput, all that stuff, right? So many of the change management frameworks are pretty much similar, just with a few nuances. So now to answer your question, right? I feel personally that some of those, while like if to the untrained eye, it feels like, okay, there is a change and it's chaotic. The difference, in my opinion, is that the change is so dynamic and so pervasive across the world that everybody is going through this change. So, so it's not like, okay, we were doing waterfall and we introduced agile, and then it took us X number of years, and now our productivity is high. That was slow, and different organizations were making those changes at their own pace. But now there is a force by which everybody is making this change. I mean, people talk about AI slop now, which basically means that everybody is talking AI, right? So I feel that the elements of those change management frameworks will still work, but then you will need to apply it. So that's where the human touch comes in. You have to understand your organization. You have to understand the pain points. You have to understand, like, why are you making that change towards AI? Like, if you don't have an answer to the why, then some of those whats are not going to work for you, right? I mean, that's my top of mind answer. I'm sure you can research and write a whole white paper on this. It's such an interesting topic.
No, that resonates with me. Much like what Suzette said, it's going to be super fast and accelerated with AI included.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, and we used to talk about this concept called VUCA world, right? Which is, the changes are so volatile. What is that? Help me, my PhD friends here.
Volatile, complex.
Volatility, yep.
Yeah.
Uncertainty, complexity.
Yeah,
Yeah.
uncertainty.
And
Yeah.
ambiguity, right? And
Yeah.
all
Yep.
of those apply
Ambiguous.
to AI transformation as well. All right. Any other questions? We are at 8 o'clock. Yeah, I don't see any more questions.
Yeah. Okay. So I think we are right on time to close. Thank you, Suzette and Yemen, for a beautiful, wonderful session. We all got great tips for our AI adoption. And thank you, everyone, for joining Loudon Agile Network on Thursday evening. Please, please reserve your time for April 9th, where we will feature Noble Ackerman he will present on calibrated trust. It's a framework to build AI agent that actually delivers. We did touch on AI agents and the way how to build it, which are more feasible. So make sure you sign up for our next session. Thank you once again for Suzette and Yemen for joining us and all the
Thank you.
audience for participating.
Thank you so much. And
Thank
if
you.
you're not yet a
See you
member,
next month.
please, if you're not yet a member, please do become a member. So that will be good. We are like 2,300. We turned 2,300 this week. Yeah. So yeah, thank you so much, everyone.
All right. Thank you. Take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
I just plugged the Azure if anybody wants to see about the governance for like later reading. It's just in the message, there for anyone. But I really liked today's presentation. Thank you so much, guys.
Thank
Thank
you,
you.
everybody.
Very well.
I'll be in touch with you soon, okay? I'll grab you guys, but if you find your LinkedIn, okay?
Thank you.
Bye.
See you guys. Have a nice evening. Take care. Good night.